This episode of Nintendo Expansion Pass is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support Nintendo Pop Like and the Boss Rush Network, head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/Boss Network and see which tier is right for you. Thanks for your continued support. Hello everybody, welcome to Nintendo Expansion Pass here on Boss Rush Network. I'm your host and Lights Excited ADV. Joining me is the one, the only writer himself, the cool WrestleManiac, the one, the only Josh Martinez. Hello, good sir.
Hello, that was quite the intro there, Ed. I didn't get that last time, but I'll take it this time.
Yes. Well, because the thing about it is that I was so amazed by your hair. I was just like, how can I, how can I was just like, oh, his hair looks so luscious. But like the rest of front has been kind of crazy, kind of odd, but it's been good. I'm still taken aback by Dave Bautista's weight loss.
Yeah, I mean,
and everything.
it's the same thing that happens like when NFL linemen are like 300, 400 pounds when they're playing, but then as soon as they retire, they drop down to an even 200. And you're like, holy cow. I mean, the same thing with Batista. That dude was a muscle machine back in 2005. Like that dude made Triple H look small, and that's not easy to do. And
Yes.
now everybody makes him look small. So yeah, it's wrestling's good right now. Batista's lean and mean, but
He's still hot as ever.
you know what though? Here's a take. The Rock might be getting all the big names and be the big star, but I think Batista's the best actor to come out of wrestling because he's got a range. The Rock plays the same character. The Rock plays The Rock for the last 20 years. Batista's played. He can play Drax. He was in the Glass Onion movies. He's in the what is it, Cabin in the Woods? Like he can do all these things. So
I want to see that movie that he was in. I think it's the M. Night Shyamalan movie. Yeah, based on the book. Like, as crazy as it is, like, yet he is. I'm like, goodness, he is hot in this like Christian look, and and I'm mouth water over Dave Bautista ever since I see him on the WWE. On Monday Night Raw, I think he came out of nowhere. I don't even think he had a match yet. He came on the last match and made someone else win. Like, and he was brand new. Like, this was his first reveal and everything. And I was just like, who is this person? And ever since his career, I'm like, whether he played a good guy or a bad guy, once he got into the movie universe, like, he's just been a amazing person. He's still amazing. Like, I love that he loves his dogs and stuff like that. You know, he stand up for a lot of rights. Like, he is just awesome. Like, he even goof around. No, he knows that he's a daddy. So, or zaddy. So he'll goof around with that and everything. And and no matter what, like, a lot of guys just like, we admire him from afar, and everything. We love him from afar, and we wouldn't do anything to jeopardize or make him feel uncomfortable. But I think he's just been such a great person, human being, um ever since his reveal from WWE. Like, and once he got into the movie, and doing movies and stuff, like, he's always been one of the greats, being able to um be be an actor and be a wrestler. Same with John Cena, him being an actor, a musician, artist, rapper, whatever you want to call him. and being a wrestler, like John Cena still could, well, Cena could still get it, but he is still funny. You know,
Mm-hmm.
his Oscar moment with him coming out naked, that is still one of the best moments. I guffaw at that. I was just like, oh, they really went for it. And it was so great that he was a sport about it. And he's just such a great human being too.
Well, and like you said, so just some context here. So Batista and Cena came out of the same like rookie class when they came to WWE. So
Hmm.
they were the Ohio Valley Wrestling 2002 class, and that class
Yeah.
included John Cena, Dave Batista, Randy Orton, and Brock Lesnar. All four fantastic who just defined the next 20 years of wrestling when they made their debuts in '02 or '03. But
Hmm.
like you said, to stand out from that group, like it's such a good, and that's not even mentioning a fifth guy named Shelton Benjamin who was crazy athletic who doesn't get the mention. But you know, and Cena's an interesting one because Cena was, it wasn't since Hulk Hogan that WWE had like a good guy who was like a good like hustle, loyalty, respect type good guy. Like took all the pictures with the kids and everything. And I think he holds the record from WWE for granting the most Make a Wish for the kids from the
Yeah.
Make a Wish Foundation. So like Cena's been such a good thing, and then like you said, Dave's such a good guy. I could talk about this for hours, but no, it's sad to see all these guys get old because to some sad news, John Cena's retiring next year from wrestling. He'll probably still make appearances, but he said he's going to come in starting next year, pretty much work the full year, and then at the end of the year he's going to hang it up and be done. So
Oh,
he'll still show up and be on the mic, but in terms of being in the actual ring, he'll be done at the end of next year. So
and he's had a good career, a good run. Uh,
17 titles.
ah, but right, we did have a plan for this episode, but switch it up. We're gonna talk about the Nintendo performance. I think at the end of the show. Um, But speaking of wrestling, because now I'm thinking of wrestling games. We talked about NSO, online. Where's the NWO and the WWF wrestling games from the N64 days?
I mean,
Those games were top tier. Even one of our me and my friends is SmackDown on PS2. I
mhm.
I think it's the second game. It may be the first or second game. But like even SmackDown on PS2 was the game with the creative characters and stuff. But like the THQ wrestling games on N64 were literally the top tier wrestling games because
Mhm.
it could be NWO or WWE. They were using the same engines, but they were just so fun to play. Slow as molasses, but they worked. You
Mhm.
know.
Well, and here's one too. So, we, I mean, rightfully so. The discussion's always going to be WWF No Mercy. It's going to be WCW NWO. Those two games, WrestleMania
Yeah.
2000.
Hold
Those
on.
are all.
Was the NWO one? Was that the black cartridge?
There was the two. So there was NWO WCW. I think it was called No Revenge, and it had like Bill Goldberg on the cover with Hulk
Yes.
Hogan um, and Hall and Nash. So I think that was the black cartridge one.
Okay.
But here's a deep cut. So, and I wrote a banter about this a couple months ago with Nintendo launching its N64 M-rated spot. There's
Yes.
a forgotten wrestling game that could go in there, and it's called ECW Hardcore Revolution.
Oh, good googly moogly. I forgot all about that game.
I don't care
Yeah.
if it's bad or not. I want that game in there. I wa- I mean, people still go nuts for ECW today, so that game would have a lot of fun playing it.
Because it literally was like an independent wrestling company, like wrestling show.
Hmm.
Um and like it was kind of like a a conversation in the wrestling community. It wasn't a general discussion about them, but like I do remember that game. I think the problem was is that that was a blockbuster hit. So it
Hmm.
never stayed at Blockbuster. Somebody kept renting it because I could never find it in stores. I could
Right.
never find that game in stores.
Well, and it's Acclaim is the one that released it, and all those Turok and Shadow Man games that are going up on N64,
Mm-hmm.
they're Acclaim.
They're
So
playing. Yeah.
Acclaim, let's go. I want my Paul Heyman back on my TV screen.
it's I think we I don't know if we ever I think we talked about this on Jump Off Point. Our wrestling journeys and stuff in video game form. I think the first one for me definitely was pro wrestling on the Sega Master System, where I had to do uh 50 rounds of wrestling, or 30 rounds of wrestling, uh with these, is me versus the computer, and I had it, I had to fight them 10 rounds each. And after 10 rounds, I would get my belt and go on to the next one. And so I played that straight. It took me about 3 hours on the Sega Master System to beat that game, because it was a game made by Sega, and it doesn't have nothing in WWE/WWF at that time. Um, I remember playing that, and then I think there was a wrestling game on Nintendo before I got into the wrestling stuff on Super Nintendo. Um, which WWF Royal Rumble was my game on Super Nintendo. Me and my friend, we would play that every Saturday.
So now that you say stuff, I think I bet I know why we might not see it anytime soon, and I think it's probably surrounding that WWF name because they can't market with that name
Hmm.
anymore. They can still show. So if you go on Peacock and watch old stuff from the 90 Monday Night Raw when it was Raw's
Yeah.
War, they still have the WWF logo on there, and they'll say the World Wrestling Federation. They used to just bleep it out and blur out the WWF logo. Now they don't do that anymore. So maybe there's hope, but I think there's probably something, the same reason why they won't re-release the backyard baseball games with all the kid versions of the MLB players, because there's
Hmm.
whole franchising issues with MLB to do that. I bet that's why we don't see any of these wrestling games, which is just such a bummer if that's true. I'm holding out hope, but the what was that? The World Wildlife Fund was like so
Yeah.
picky with that, and I mean Vince McMahon didn't lose many lawsuits, but he lost that one. And
Well,
so,
the thing about it is was that I don't know how confusing it was, because WWF had been out for a long time using it. The World Wrestling Federation, like that well, not anagram. Um, that's been just out for a long time. So I don't know why it had become a lawsuit in the late 90s,
yeah, well, and
closer to 2000.
it had been going, I think, since mid '90s, and it just was 2002 that finally got settled. But I mean, like on the heels of it, they had the whole steroid trial in '94, and
Hmm.
then I think World Wildlife Fund. But like you said, so they were WWF up until about 1980, and then they made the shift over to just WWF, and they were that for a good 22 years. Now they've been WWE longer than they were
Yeah.
WWF, but still, like I will never forget. So, funny story. I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling because I was too young, and my parents didn't want me crotch shopping at school like DX or anything like that. Because I mean, I'm not. I was born in '91, so when the Attitude Era was big, I was 7. I was 8. I wasn't allowed to be watching some of that stuff. It wasn't until I got older that I really started to get into it
Oh
more.
shoot! I was watching and wrestling them when I was like 5 or 6.
Yeah,
Heck, I
but
went to
back
go see. I went to go see No Holds Barred with my mom and my brother.
Yeah, but you're older than me. Back in the '80s, wrestling was like a family thing. In the Attitude Era, when Stone Cold Steve Austin was running
Hmm.
around, Like, I mean, it was not uncommon. Their Jim Ross was telling everybody, like, "Hey, if you come to this wrestling show, you might see topless women." Like, it's that's just what that era was. So my parents weren't going to let me watch it in
Right.
1999. But um, yeah. Anyway, I don't even remember where I was going with that, but it was just it's been a fun journey. So I've never actually played some of those older games because I didn't get into wrestling probably until the 2010s, and by then it was WWE 2K whatever, which
Yeah.
they're not bad. They're just not memorable. They're very
They
forgettable.
they're getting better, I will
They are.
say.
They are, but
So
they're starting to fall into the trap that all other sports games do, which is minimal updates every year, not worth
yeah.
the $70 to play. I mean, WWE goes a little bit further because they have campaign modes a little bit more than say Madden or NBA 2K. But yeah, when I picked up this one with Cody Rhodes on the cover, I was like, it's fun, but it's not memorable. It's fun and it's getting better, but they still got some work to do to get back to where they were with No Mercy and WCW and WO. So
So let's see. So Acclaim released it, THQ, um 2K, uh let's see. Nintendo didn't have yeah, Nintendo did have a wrestling game, I think. But it was like Japanese stars and I cannot think of it. Um I think Nintendo published it. Microsoft and Sony don't have a wrestling game or anything. Uh, Midway had theirs. That arcade one of WWF.
mhm.
Um, who I think that's pretty much it. I can't speak on the Japanese wrestling games, but I know here from America, like those developers and publishers were the ones who have released wrestling games. I don't know who did backyard wrestling. Um, uh, I think that's the one but they, was in a backyard and going through tables, hitting them with knives and buckets and stuff. Um,
So that one was
was
looking
it?
up. So Backyard Wrestling 2003, PS2, Xbox, Eidos Interactive. So Paradox Development developed it, and Eidos Interactive, which was became Square Enix Europe, they published
Mhm.
it.
Okay.
So that's those games. Since we on a Nintendo show, Ed, here's the Nintendo Sports that's missing. Nintendo Wrestling. Can you imagine Waluigi putting somebody in a suplex? I would be all in on that game. I would like if you made it as wacky as Mario sports games get,
Hmm.
I would be all in on it. I mean, and you can't tell me it's too violent because you have Super Smash Brothers. You'd be just as
That
wacky. You'd be less wacky than Super Smash Brothers, or you'd be more wacky than Super Smash Brothers with a Mario type game.
yeah, it's just yeah. I think Nintendo be like, how will we do a wrestling game? For it because even it's not even in the Wii Sports style kind of games. Um, but yeah, I kind of would love to see if Nintendo did like a first party using their characters um in a wrestling game. You
And
know.
I think the best spot to do it because Super Smash Brothers exists. That's everybody together. If you
Mhm.
did this, I think it has to be Mario characters because then that lets you be silly. If you start to do like you can have fun with Zelda characters, maybe Kirby characters, but I feel like the Mario universe has so many fun characters you could do this whole first person wrestling game around and just make it like Mario Tennis, Mario Sluggers. Like you have all these Mario sports games, make a Mario wrestling game, and you can get like how goofy would it be to put Wario on the top rope of something, jumping down and just body slamming somebody, and then it's just like whatever goofy Mario stuff that comes with it. I'd be all I. That's the game I would buy. That game, there's your Switch 2 launch title, Mario Wrestling. Give me
I,
that.
I, the only problem that I have with that is that I fear the fan art would be too sexualized, over sexualized. And I'm talking about the way they did design Mario and Luigi and how they would do Waluigi and Wario. Like, and then Bowser. Like, and
I
then
mean,
like people would be like, it's Ganondorf from Tears of the Kingdom, or Zadidor for some people, or Daddy Dorf as some people call him too. Would he be in the game? Like it's it's how do you take a kids game and keep it kids without certain adults over sexualizing
I
the
mean,
characters?
it sucks because they did it, but they did that with when what Mario was shirtless in Mario Odyssey. All of a
Hmm.
sudden, people be running wild with that one, and I'm like, come on, guys, it's Mario. He's at the beach. Of course, he's not going to have a shirt on. But no, I see where you're going with that. I still think if they could pull that off, that would be such a fun game. I'd be all in on it.
Yeah, it's 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 kind of crazy. So,
The
um,
internet is awful. The internet ruined fun things.
the internet has its moments and places. I would say that,
Hmm.
and it's creativity, because sometimes the internet can be a good source. It can be used for good, and other times it can be used up to devious decisions. I should say. I will leave it at that. Um,
That's a nice way to put it.
yes. Well, everybody, before we go, we kind of want to talk about, like, quickly talk about, Nintendo's performance in some of their latest games. So, Echoes of Wisdom has been kind of an issue with some of the frame rates that's dropping. Um, Mario and Luigi Brothership, it got a 5 out of IGN and some other places. It's been having mixed reviews, but one of the things has been about the performance of the game. We had Princess Peach Showtime, which had some issues with this performance. So, the question has kind of been just like, is it because of the Switch getting old, um, with its tech, and outside developers making games for Nintendo? Is that a problem for the performance, instead of Nintendo making the games themselves? Um, because I think Princess Peach, Showtime, Echoes of Wisdom, and um, Brothership have all been from developers outside of Nintendo. Um,
Yeah, I think one of the hard things, because as great as the Switch has been, we've only seen one very slight upgrade, and that's been the OLED version.
mhm,
Largely, we're running on the same type of stuff we ran in 2017. And games have changed so much in the last 7 years that even when the Switch released, it was, as they figured out the hybrid, it was running on older. Um, when I say older, I just mean not as current specs, just because so that they could do the handheld, they could do the hybrid thing with it. So at that point, when it starts out behind a little bit, now here we are. We've had two new Xbox and PlayStation have both released new consoles in the time of the Switch's lifespan. Games are just getting past that. So I think third party games have a hard time keeping up for that reason. That they're trying to they're already trying to split development between like PS4 and PS5, how they're still doing the
mhm,
dual releases. Switch is even a step further back than the PS4. What did they say that this PS or the Switch 2 is going to be able to play like PS4 Pro games, like that level of graphics. So that just shows you where the Switch is at, technically. So I mean, Nintendo's always going to know how to work its own equipment and how to get the best
yes.
things out of it. I mean, there's no doubt in that. I'm playing Paper Mario Thousand Year Door right now, and it runs so smooth. It looks gorgeous, and Nintendo just knows how to work its stuff. So I think third party developers, they're going to have a hard time, and I just think it shows it's time for the successor to come out, and it's any day now at this point. But as soon as it comes, I think if the rumors are going to be true, then I think that you're going to see some more developers really latch onto that because they latched onto it when it first came out. As you update the software, hardware, you're good to go. I think.
I think the thing about it is that we're still not a industry that is at fully at 60 frames per second. I think we are still dealing with the 30 frames per second, even if that's capped. I know 120 frames could be done on PS5 and Xbox, but that's like very rare, and that's up to your TV. If it could do it. I think one of the things has been, even with Xbox and PlayStation and sometimes even PC, is that performance has now been kind of like the number one issue in games. Like there are certain games that do it well out the box, is executed like Hellblade, but that's at 30. Paper Mario, it was 60 on GameCube, but now it's 30 to keep up, with all the, to keep things up and keep things smooth. So like I think that or even if you look at Metro Dread, that game is running at 60 frames per second most of the time. That might even have some issues here and there, but not too much. It kind of feels like performance of a lot of games on any console has literally been an issue, and I don't think it would ever get fixed no matter how much power you put into your console. I don't think we're gonna get to a point where we're all going to be at 60 frames per second as a base. Because right now, 30 frames per second is the base. If everything was 60 frames per second as a base, I could understand Nintendo might have a problem with being in the industry if they don't get their model or their console up to that standard. Um,
Well, and to
with
your
okay.
sorry, I was going to say just to your point, Ed, where you brought up that you can reach 120 frames per second on a PS5 or Xbox Series X
Hmm.
if your TV can keep up with it. That's the thing is we upgrade consoles more than we upgrade TVs most of the time. So
Yeah.
even if it could hit, even if like 60 becomes the base, there's no guarantee that most people would have the TV to handle that. Sure, you might get people who upgrade it, but I mean, when you get a TV, you're hoping that thing lasts you at least 10 years, if not more.
Yeah,
So,
and I should say megahertz, everybody, for the TVs, not frames per second, but pretty much megahertz.
but I mean, like, there's stuff like I've got an HDR mode on my smart TV that does help out with the PlayStation 5. But, like, to that point, though, not all TVs, even if you have a TV from like 2015, it's not going to keep up with these consoles. And oftentimes, these consoles don't work with these older TVs. So, to that point, Ed, it's hard to make a baseline in any kind of graphics because
Hmm.
you're beholden to what you're playing on. Nintendo has the luxury that they've got a screen built into their console. They can control that aspect because the Switch is going to be the same across the board when it's in handheld mode. But the TV is the wild card that makes that harder to figure something out because everyone's going to be different. Because at what point do you don't want to kneecap your customer base because
Hmm.
they can't play it on their TV because it's too old. So by the
Yeah.
time we get to a say a 60 frames per second being the baseline, then 240 frames per second is probably going to be achievable at that point. Like that's it's just there's no way to keep up with it because the TV throws a wild card into that all of that.
Yeah, I think when we get to even PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox, um I always talk about just don't market the 60 frames 4K thing, because you're placing an expectation that is not truly going to be met, because a lot of games are still hitting 1080p or 1440p. If it is 60 frames per second, the graphics is going to go down, so that the game can run. Like, I'm playing Dragon Age Velguard, and I went for performance mode over graphics, because I know that I can have a gorgeous looking game, but that's going to hinder the performance of it, you know.
Hmm.
And I think if you're going to have a powerful system, or even you're going to market it with all of these buzzwords that your system could do this and do that, I shouldn't have to select which kind of, um I won't say version. I shouldn't have to select what kind of game should be functioning. That should be functioning. Like, I should be able to do a performance and a graphics more at the same time. I should have the best graphics with the best performance for my console. If it's a high end console, if I'm paying all of this money and investing. I know with Nintendo, they're trying to find out, not I won't say a cheaper option, even though that's what a lot of people would say, but I try to find um a reason that why Nintendo chooses the chooses the how they're going to make their console, that's going to be affordable to the consumers and make them as a company money, and their supporters, the indies and third parties, how it's going to make them money while getting a great or good enough experience on their console. Um because I the the thing about it is that, of course, not all Nintendo games are going to be great on how they run. um, but there is something that comes out of a lot of Nintendo games, that when the next system or the next game comes out, maybe they improved upon it. Maybe they did listen, and it's a better version of it. We're
Hmm.
waiting for the next Zelda game. Um Pikmin 4 is a great example. Nintendo within themselves using Unreal Engine 4, or Unreal Engine. Like, Pikmin 4 looks amazing and runs super well. And I kind of feel like if developers can learn the console, or learn their interest, see what works and what doesn't work, I think we'll have better games, definitely for the successor, but we'll definitely have better games for Xbox and PlayStation.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was thinking of too is one thing that Nintendo has in going for it is you. I think if you can surround enough stuff to compensate for the lack of technical upgrades, it makes it okay. So I'll take Ys 8 for example. We were talking about
Hmm.
Ys the last time. Ys 8 was a PlayStation 4 game, and there was moments it was noticeable on the Switch that it was struggling. Mainly if the creatures were far away and they would move, you could tell the frame rate dropped on them. They were just very choppy moving, but I didn't care because I could play that game handheld. I could play that. The fact that it still ran well enough, I overlooked a lot of that stuff. Nintendo has that going for it, where a lot of other consoles where they brag about PlayStation 5, you can hit 4K gaming, you can hit 100 or 60 frames per second easily. So when you don't hit that, that makes it all the more noticeable. Nintendo's got so much else going for it that it helps ease this, but as it gets older, it's just going to become more and more noticeable so that when the successor does get here, it's going to feel like such a big upgrade in a very
Yes.
good way. So, I mean, they were able to get through these 7 years because they had so much else going for it. But now it's to a point where it's like, okay, we need somewhat of an upgrade to keep these type of games coming on to the Switch.
Yes. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for this expansion pass. We talked about resting, and we talked about resting with the Nintendo performance in their games lately. But you can actually check out more of us out at on Nintendo Pop Block or on our YouTube and at bossfish.net. Check out Josh's articles and my articles on bossfish.net also. Let everybody have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time on Nintendo Expansion Pass. Bye, everybody.
If you want to see how you can become a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. The Patreon producers for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Deering, Francisco Santillan, Matthew Keel, and Todd Oxtra. Thanks for your continued support of the Boss Rush Network.